John Ritcher. That is the name, that is the move, and that is only the start. First, the Giants added a new front office voice. Then, the real connection inside the building matters. And then, the part that changes everything. This hire tells you how Big Blue plans to fix the roster. By the end of this video, you will know why this move matters. Big Blue lock-in. This is not a depth chart signing. This is not a player walking into MetLife Stadium with a jersey number. This is different. The Giants hired former Texans scouting executive John Ritcher, and if you only react to player moves, you are going to miss the whole point. Real talk before we dive in. Eagles fans love acting like their organization is the only one allowed to build smart. Cowboys fans never stop talking. Commanders fans think every reset is the one. If you want a channel by Big Blue, for Big Blue, to push back every single day, hit subscribe right now. Every sub is a flag planted for Big Blue Nation. Comment, "Let's go Giants," and let the NFC East know we are here. Now let's get to the real story, because this hire is not loud, but it is telling. Breaking news from the front office. The Giants are continuing to reshape and strengthen their personnel department, and the name is John Ritcher. He comes from the Texans scouting side, and that detail matters. Not because it gives the Giants a headline star. Not because fans are buying jerseys. But because roster building starts before the roster ever hits the field. This is where bad teams stay bad. They only chase the obvious move. They only react when a player is already on television. They only care when the contract is announced, when the trade is done, or when the depth chart changes. But smart organizations build the room before they build the roster. That is what this move is about. Ritcher brings college scouting experience, and the Giants are adding another evaluator to the building. That means another voice in the draft process. Another set of eyes on prospects. Another perspective when the front office is deciding who fits, who does not, and who is worth trusting with the future. And let's be clear, Big Blue still has roster needs. That is not an insult. That is reality. The Giants are trying to close the gap in the NFC East, and you do not close that gap by guessing. You close it by improving the process that finds players, compares players, and decides which players belong in New York. Film don't lie. This is not about one name on one staff page. This is about the Giants admitting that personnel infrastructure matters. That is chess, not checkers. The Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders are not waiting around for Big Blue to figure it out. The NFC East is a pressure cooker. If your scouting process is behind, your roster falls behind. If your roster falls behind, your quarterback pays for it. And right now, Jaxson Dart is the current Giants starting quarterback, so every roster-building decision touches the future around him. Personal opinion here. I think this is a smart move, not a flashy move. And honestly, I trust smart more than flashy when the issue is long-term roster construction. The Giants need better decisions, not louder headlines. Disagree? Drop your reasoning below. But wait, the hire itself is only layer one. The next part is bigger because John Ritcher is not just some random evaluator walking into the building cold. He already has connections with two important Giants decision-makers, and that changes how you should read this move. Now, this is what most channels miss. The key detail is not only that John Ritcher has scouting experience. The key detail is who he already knows inside the Giants building. Joe Schoen and Don Aponte. That is the turn. Ritcher has prior working connections with Schoen and Aponte from their time in Miami. That matters because front office chemistry is not a small thing. When a team is trying to reshape how it evaluates players, the people in the room need to speak the same language. This is not about hiring a friend. This is about hiring someone trusted enough to enter a decision-making process that affects the whole roster. Think about what that means. The Giants are not just adding a resume. They are adding familiarity. They are adding someone who can plug into a front office conversation without starting from zero. They are adding a personnel voice that already has a history with people who matter inside the building. That does not guarantee success, but it does tell you the Giants are prioritizing alignment. And alignment matters when the franchise is trying to improve scouting, roster building, and long-term decision-making. If the general manager is looking at one kind of player, the scouting department is pushing another, and the contract side sees the roster differently. That is how teams drift. Big Blue cannot drift. Not in this division. Not with the Eagles trying to stay ahead. Not with the Cowboys always chasing relevance. Not with the Commanders trying to build their own thing. The Giants need a tighter process. This hire points directly at that. Here's what the front office won't admit. This move is about trust. Not fan trust. Internal trust. The kind where a scouting report, a roster discussion, and a long-term plan all connect before the decision becomes public. I'll say it, and I know this will split people. In my opinion, this is one of the most important non-player moves the Giants have made because it attacks the source of the problem, not the symptom, the source. Better voices lead to better decisions. Tell me I'm wrong. Now I want your take. Comment, genius, if you think strengthening the front office is exactly what Big Blue needed. Comment, overrated, if you think this hire is getting too much attention. No middle ground. Make me defend my position. Quick reminder, if you are still here, you are Big Blue. Hit subscribe, because story 3 is the real payoff. And what comes next is the one. Because this hire is not only about John Ritcher, Joe Schoen, or Don Aponte. It is about what the Giants are telling us without saying it out loud. Now, this is what you have really been waiting for. The story that flips the whole conversation is not the hire by itself. It is the message behind the hire. The Giants are telling you they know the roster still needs work. They are telling you the personnel department still matters. They are telling you that scouting, evaluation, and long-term decision-making are not side issues. They are the foundation. And that is the bomb. The Giants hired former Texans scouting executive John Ritcher, and the focus is clear. Improve the process that builds the roster. Not one position. Not one splash. Not one short-term headline. The process. That is why this matters more than casual fans think. When a team has roster needs, every evaluator matters. Every scouting opinion matters. Every internal debate matters. The front office is where the future gets shaped before anyone outside the building sees the result. You want better depth? It starts with evaluation. You want stronger competition? It starts with evaluation. You want a roster that can stand up to the Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders? It starts with evaluation. And yes, you want the right pieces around Jaxson Dart? It starts with evaluation. That is why this move is not boring to me. It is foundational. Now connect this to the first two stories. First, the Giants added Ritcher as another front office voice. That gives the personnel department more scouting experience. Then, the connection to Schoen and Aponte tells you this is not random. It is a trusted addition, made with internal familiarity, inside a franchise trying to sharpen how it builds. Together, that paints a clear picture. The Giants are not just reacting to roster needs. They are trying to improve the machine that solves roster needs. That is the difference between chasing and building. Chasing is when a team waits until the problem is obvious, then scrambles. Building is when a team improves the people, the process, and the decision tree before the public sees the next move. Big Blue needs building. This fanbase has lived through enough short-term fixes, enough hope cycles, enough empty off-season noise. G-Men fans know the difference between a move made for applause and a move made for structure. This move is structure. And here is the part that should make every NFC East rival pay attention. If the Giants improve the way they identify players, the entire roster-building timeline changes. Not overnight, not magically, but directionally. This is how a franchise stops repeating the same mistakes. The front office is where the advantage begins. Scouting is not decoration. It is not background work. It is the pipeline. If the Giants want to close the gap in the division, they need more than emotion. They need sharper evaluation, stronger internal alignment, and better long-term decisions. That is exactly the angle of this hire. I'm going on record right now. In my opinion, this hire matters more than a mid-tier player signing would have mattered. A player signing helps one spot. A better evaluator can influence multiple future decisions. That is bigger. That is my strongest take of the video. Convince me I'm wrong. I'm listening. Now you have your answer to the question I asked earlier. Drop genius or overrated in the comments, because this is the dividing line. Do you value front office infrastructure, or do you only care when a player is signed? If this analysis hit, like the video. That is how we keep the algorithm pushing real Big Blue breakdowns, not empty noise. 3 stories. 1 picture. Here is what it all means together. The Giants hired John Ritcher. He brings college scouting experience. He has prior working connections with Joe Schoen and Don Aponte. And the franchise is strengthening its personnel department while trying to improve roster building, scouting, and long-term decision-making. That is the thesis. Big Blue is trying to fix the pipeline. Not just the roster you see. The roster before it becomes visible. The decisions before they become transactions. The scouting before it becomes a draft board. The internal trust before it becomes a final call. That is how you compete with the Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders. Not by copying them. By building your own edge. Listen, the next video is going deeper into what this front office direction means for the Giants' roster needs and how it can affect the players who actually make the depth chart. If you are Big Blue for real, you need that breakdown. Subscribe now, hit the bell, And make sure YouTube actually sends it to you. Drop your final answer below. Genius or overrated. But listen closely. One decision is still hanging over all of this. How the Giants turn front office alignment into actual roster improvement. Hiring the evaluator is step one. The real test is what the team does with that voice when roster decisions arrive. That is where this gets serious. Because the NFC East is not slowing down. The Eagles are always positioning. The Cowboys are always loud. The Commanders are trying to climb. And the Giants cannot afford a weak process while everyone else is fighting for every edge. This is not the finish line. This is the setup. The next domino is not about whether this hire sounds exciting. The next domino is whether the Giants turn this front office move into better scouting results, cleaner roster decisions, and a stronger long-term plan. That is what I am watching. Because if John Ritcher becomes part of a better decision-making room, this move grows over time. If the process improves, Big Blue benefits where it matters most, the roster. And if the roster improves, MetLife Stadium feels different. New York Tough is not just about hitting harder. It is about building smarter, refusing shortcuts, and making decisions that hold up when the division gets nasty. That is what this hire is really about. Big Blue, the battle is here. Subscribe, stay locked, and keep planting the flag for Big Blue Nation. Eagles fans, Cowboys fans, Commanders fans, they can watch from the outside. This is G-Men territory. Drop your final answer below. Let's go Giants.